Welcome to Basic Brewing Video. I'm James Spencer.
I'm Steve Wilkes.
Today we're going to do an experiment. So sit back. This may be a little complicated, but we did an audio episode with Chris Colby a while back on Basic Brewing Radio, you and I, where we sat and we sampled your Kolsch.
Yep.
And he actually liked it. So kudos to you.
Kudos to me.
Either he's just being nice to you. He's not nice to me, but he's nice to you. Anyway,
He's afraid of me. He knows I'll start cutting. I got a box knife.
I was trying to think of a prison rhyme, but I can't do it. I've had half of a big old double IPA.
Have you heard my new album, The Shawshank Redemption?
Okay, we're already off the trails, off the racks, off the tracks. Oh, good Lord! We're not starting over.
No,
we're going. We'll do it live.
We've suffered for this beer, and now it's your turn.
So, do you remember the experiment that I proposed? I said I want to make a very small batch of beer, and I want to make a fruit beer, and basically add the fruit beer after fermentation in the bottle. Basically, carbonate the beer with the fruit. You know, the yeast would eat the fruit and carbonate the beer. Then I want to stop that carbonation process with heat pasteurization, and before the bottles blow up. And we did them in these PET bottles. Yeah. And this one's been opened, and I resealed it and I repressurized it with this little, CO2 cap. So, so I wanted to test a couple of things. Number one, could I adequately feel the tightness of the bottle to say, okay, it's carbonated now? Number two, could I stop the carbonation process with heat pasteurization? And number three, could I preserve the fresh fruit flavor of the juice even though I heated it up for a certain amount of time? So those are kind of the things that we want to talk about. We can't really test with this bottle, we can't really test the carbonation level because it's already been opened and I resealed it.
Skewed a little bit.
Right. So spoilers, it was not carbonated well. I panicked. I felt it getting tight in the carbonation process, and I went, I don't want these to blow up.
Right.
I pasteurized them, and then when I opened them, they did hiss, but there wasn't enough carbonation. So that's out of the way. But there are other things that we can and it did stop the pasteurization. The heat pasteurization did stop the fermentation process because there is still sugar in there. There is still sweetness, but obviously none of the bottles blew up because they weren't even carbonated. So what I want you to help me taste today is what the heat pasteurization did to the character of the fruit.
Got it.
So in other words, does it taste cooked?
Right.
So anyway, this is the longest intro before talking about the thing.
It takes more work to explain it than
right. This is not just an ordinary beer thing; it's an experiment. So we designed this little recipe. I started out with 3 quarts of water, and I heated that up to 150 degrees Fahrenheit or 65 C, and into that I put in a little bag 1 ounce each, or 20 grams of roasted barley, black malt, and special B. I steeped that in a preheated oven for 30 minutes. After that, I put in 1 pound, or 450 grams of Pilsen Light dry malt extract. And I brought that just up to the boil, and as it hit the boil, I turned off the heat. And I added 1 ounce or 20 grams of Willamette at 6.3% alpha acid for a 10-minute steep. So I took it off the heat, it steeped for 10 minutes, and then I chilled it down in an ice bath, and I added a package of Safale SO4. So I set that off to ferment. In the meantime, I took 30 ounces or 850 grams of frozen blackberries, and I pulled out the steam juicer. And I collected a little over 2 cups or about 500 milliliters of juice, at 7.5 bricks or 1030 original gravity. So after fermentation, I rack the beer into a Mr. Beer fermenter to make it easy to mix things together. I added 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and then I made a tincture of half a cup of vodka and 2 ounces or 56 grams of cacao nibs. Of that, I added 15 milliliters of that tincture, along with the 2 cups of juice. I just put the whole thing in there. Then I put the lids on, bottle it, set them in the bathroom. After about 3 days, they felt kind of tight. So what I did was I put them in my Warthog Brew in a Bag system at, the target was 145 degrees Fahrenheit. But I put the bottles in there at about 140, or I started the timer when a bottle that I put in there that had just water in it with no lid, I put a temperature probe in that to test what the temperature of the liquid inside the bottles were. So I set them starting out at 140 degrees Fahrenheit. It reached 145, but over 30 minutes. And once that 30 minutes was over, I took them out and then I put them in a garbage sack and I put them in the bathtub. So what we have here is, it started out at 1074. It ended at 1012 for an ABV of 8.2% before the little bit of fermentation of the juice. So, and I have to credit for this idea Tim Lieber, our mead making friend, from one of our podcasts, our audio podcasts that we recorded at the Homebrewers Conference years ago. He did something similar with mead. He pasteurized, I think, at 160 degrees.
I think so.
And I think he spent he cooled down in the water. I wanted to see if I could do a lower temperature for a set amount of time, because I didn't want, not that his meads tasted cooked, they didn't, but I wanted to preserve as much of the fruit flavor as possible.
Right.
So is there any details that I left out? That's a lot to say.
I don't think so.
This is the longest we've gone without tasting. So do you want to, and again, I repressurized, I put, this has a ball lock, this little lid has a ball lock nipple on it or whatever. And so I pressurized it. So what you're going to experience is not the pressure that I got from the experiment, because I used this on a bonus video that I made for our Patreon folks. And so I just drank a little bit of it, and then I resealed it with that. And so this may have more carbonation than the original beer. So,
and do I just unscrew this?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah, it's just like a regular lid.
Okay. I didn't know if I had to do a fitting or take it to my mechanic or anything like that.
We got some hiss in there.
Yeah, there's definitely some algae hiss.
So, still not super carbonated. This may be about the same carbonation level, actually, as the original experiment. Cheers. Cheers. I smell chocolate.
I smell chocolate. Yeah, I smell chocolate more than anything.
Yeah, not a whole lot of blackberry in the nose.
Well, I get some fruitiness. I couldn't say that, that's blackberry, but I do get that fruity, that fruit essence. Oh, that's delicious.
It's not a bad little beer, really.
No, it could be more carbonated.
Yes, of course.
But otherwise, I'd pay $1 for that. I think it's good.
I think it's a little on the sweet side, but that's okay because it's part of the experiment.
I was going to say that's kind of like what you're after. I bottled a beer yesterday, which I won't go into all of it because it'll take forever. But I made a braggot that I had some gyrations, and then I got it in the bottling bucket yesterday and tasted it, and I really debated about whether to, since it's a high gravity braggot, I thought, well, I could either kill it and make it a still mead, basically, or I could, prime it and bottle it. And but what I really wanted it to be sweeter, but I also really wanted it to be carbonated.
Oh, well.
So there you go.
If we could figure this out.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm sure it'll be good. I mean, I think it will, but I really would like for it to have had a little more residual sweetness. And if I could have just hit it with something that wouldn't ferment, or stop the fermentation, that would have been ideal.
Right.
So you're headed down the right path.
Yeah, I think so. Does it taste cooked, or does it taste like fresh berry juice?
It doesn't taste cooked, so I'm going to say it tastes like fresh berry juice.
It's kind of hiding. There's a lot of chocolate notes and vanilla, so it's kind of hiding in there. It's blended in there, which is what you want.
Yeah, it's actually quite well balanced in terms of those competing or complementary flavors. The chocolate and the berry flavors seem to blend really well together. I do think the chocolate is a little more pronounced, but that's okay. You need a hero flavor.
Right.
And so, to me, the hero flavor here is the chocolate with the berry flavor supporting it. And then the sweetness of the beer, well, it's not a novelty beer by any means, but it's something that I would break out a beer like this in the fall or winter.
Yeah, for sure.
And it would be really delicious. And in July, when it's 110 degrees out, maybe not the right beer.
Yeah.
But in November and December, a beer like this would be killer good. And it's so hard to keep that fruit in there and that sweetness in there. So, as you perfect this technique a little bit more, but now then the next step to me would be, how would one do this, or could one do this with a glass bottle?
Well, it's trickier because the heat transfer through PET is going to be a lot quicker.
Right.
I still think and Tim did it with the glass bottle, with that same technique of putting the temperature probe in with just water in a bottle to test, the actual temperature, because you can't, obviously can't go inside the sealed bottles. Alternatively, I guess you could brew a beer, you could flavor it correctly with the fruit juice to your level. You could force carbonate it, or you could stabilize it as you would stabilize a wine.
Right.
Then you could force carbonate it in a keg, and then you could bottle from the keg. I mean, that's one way that's probably more reliable, maybe easier to do than this. If you wanted a carbonated beer with a certain level of sweetness left over with fermentable sugars, that you wouldn't want the yeast to keep working on in the bottle.
Now, if you had gone ahead and allowed this to stay unpasteurized for a longer period of time, would it have both?
I think I would have had
overpressure.
I think I would have had bottle bombs.
Okay, and then let's say though for a second that you didn't have bottle bombs, would it dry out? Would it continue to eat the sugar out?
Yeah.
So really, part of the art of this is deciding blindly, really.
Yeah.
When is this reached where I want it to reach?
Right.
And I guess that's why you do trial and error until you establish a pattern that you can say, well, on the fourth day of this kind of fermentation, I know it's going to be there.
Right, but that's going to depend on the temperature of your room.
Good point. Yeah,
you have to have the kind of yeast that's still in the beer, the amount of yeast that's still in the beer.
Yeah.
What you could do is brew like maybe a 5-gallon batch or a 10-gallon batch or whatever, and then sacrifice, a bottle every few days, and then once they reach the carbonation level, then you hurry up and pasteurize it.
Yeah.
So it's similar to when we used to make root beer. You take a root beer extract, you put a bunch of sugar in there, you put yeast in there, and then you check a bottle every few days. Then once it's carbonated, you stick them all in the fridge real quick,
right,
so that they don't ferment anymore.
Right.
So instead of sticking them in the fridge, we're making them shelf stable by doing heat pasteurization.
Well, I think this is an interesting and intriguing idea for all the things that we've already said. The beer is delicious. The flavors are really good together. And again, if it were better carbonated, it would be a 10. Right now it's a 7.5 to 8.
Yeah, I think you're being generous, but
And
yeah.
then, okay, I can go 6 to 8, 6 to 7.
Yeah.
But it's definitely worth pursuing, and I can envision this with, like a Black Forest cake,
Ooh, yeah.
something like that.
Red velvet
cake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So
There you go. It's a long show, but
always pushing the envelope on basic brewing video,
that's right.
which is really hard to do because they're really thin and they're hard to move.
You get a paper cut.
You get a paper cut.
All right, everybody. Let us know if you've tried this kind of thing before, and like and subscribe and do comments and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, it's a lot of fun.
Okay. Oh, we've got to do the backward crossing our arms thing. Tune in next month for more basic brewing video.
Just imagine that little on the bottom of your screen. All right. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Fabersham.
Come and visit us online at basicbrewing.com. You can find archive lists of our audio and video podcasts on homebrewing. You can also find our DVDs and our brewer's logbook, where you can track and log up to 50 batches of beer.
I'm wearing camouflage. I'm trying to camouflage those Milwaukee extra pounds I brought back home. I brought back a little Milwaukee.
Bring back some cheese curds.
Oh, yeah. They were over here. And the Belgian beer is over here. And,
where's the pretzel?
Oh, my God. Well, I didn't have any pretzels.